everybody, I'm back for another The Quilted Farm Girl video. It is July. We're going to be working on the Farm Girl head block and the Farm Girl dress block. I'm going to go over a few things before we sit down to sew. I made a change to one of the fabrics that was included in the kit. This was the color that was included for the face and for the hands and the legs. It's really dark. I'm kind of pasty. I sort of wanted to make this look like me, so I changed this out. I found a lighter beige tone in one of my bundles that I got from Fat Quarter Shop. This came from the Chickadee Kona Solids May 2023 Solid of the Month Club. It's one of these, not the very light one, but probably either number 2 or 3. On the Farm Girl head block, they show adding buttons for the eyes and embroidery thread for the smile. I'm leaving that off for now. When I put my quilt together, I'm going to be long arming this myself. I do not want to have to navigate around buttons and embroidery thread. I've got everything cut and prepped for both blocks. I can't give any of the measurements. You have to purchase the pattern if you'd like to see the measurements. Everything's ready to go. For the Farm Girl head block, we need 2 of our checkerboard blocks from week 1. I looked at the picture in the book and got in there really close. These are the 2 blocks that are shown in the picture. So if you're using the fabric kit, these match what they show in the pattern book. You'll want to pull these because we're going to need them as we assemble the head block. Let's go ahead and get started with the head block. The first thing we're going to need are our little checkerboard blocks and our 2 fabric C's. I'm going to lay these out exactly as it's shown in the book. Keep in mind it really doesn't matter which end the checkerboard goes on because you can turn it before you put it in the quilt. But they do show the fabric C like this, with this checkerboard on top, and then the fabric C and the green checkerboard on the bottom. We need to go over to the machine, sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I am going to be sewing the rest of this quilt on my Juki. I believe I mentioned that last time. I really enjoy stitching on the Singer 66. That machine is 99 years old. I was not getting as accurate as a result as I was hoping for. I'm having better luck on the Juki. This is a big, complicated quilt. I need to make sure that I do the best that I can and make it easier on myself. Let's go ahead and head over to the sewing machine. I'm starting out with the guide foot on. I can see by the pattern the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to have to change and take the guide foot off. I'm just going to line these up nice and straight. They go together really nice. Let's go ahead and get these 2 pieces sewn together. After you sew them together, there's measurements in the pattern. You can always check your measurements before moving on to the next piece. I can't give away the measurements. You have to have the pattern, so I won't be calling out the measurements. You can take these over to your iron. It shows pressing toward the larger rectangle, toward fabric C. So away from the checkerboard, toward fabric C. The next thing we're going to make is the hat crown unit. Got your piece F, and you should have 2 fabric Ds. If you want to draw lines, you can draw lines. These are going to go in the upper corners, 1 there, 1 over here, and then we're going to sew like this. Top, middle, lower outside, and then we'll flip these like this. That's going to form the top of the hat. I'm going to go ahead and use the diagonal seam tape that I have here. I've already changed out my foot. Let's start with 1 corner. Let me get this re-lined up. You can pin if you like. If you've been watching for a while, you know that I just don't care to pin. If I can avoid it, I will, because I normally stick myself. We're going to line this up. I'm using the red line on the diagonal seam tape because we're going corner to corner. For the corner, you can always hand crank your needle for a stitch or 2. Make sure you've got that right where you want it to be. And then go ahead and sew corner to corner. Let's do this one in real time. Get this all the way down to the other end. Make sure I'm hitting that corner. I'm going to cut my thread. And before you cut, you can fold it and check your stitching. Make sure that you did an okay job. That looks really good. Sometimes when I go corner to corner, I don't hit it right, and when I fold, it's a little wonky. If that happens, I definitely would seam rip and restitch it. We want to trim a 1/4 inch away from that, and we'll press it. I'm just going to grab scissors because I'm sitting at the sewing machine, and we'll trim about a 1/4 inch away. And then I'll take that over to the iron and press. We do have to do the other corner on this side. You've got that piece done. Next, you want to grab your fabric H. Fabric H has this really pretty plaid print. When I cut my fabric H strip, I tried to make sure I cut it nice and straight. This is going to go right here along the bottom. It is a longer piece of fabric. I'm probably going to go ahead and add some pins right here at the top just to make sure that it stays. And then I'm going to flip it and I'm going to add pins here, just one. Make sure that's nice and even. Go ahead and add a pin. And then when I sew this, keep an eye on it. Make sure that I don't accidentally, shift the fabric and end up with something like that. We want to sew this nice and even. Once you've got that sewn on, we're going to press down toward the strip. So on the back, it's going to look like that. You're pressing toward that strip you just sewed on. Got the band sewed on and pressed. We want to grab our fabric B's. You should have 2 fabric B's. They're going to go on the right and the left sides. One over here. And it looks like it's fitting very nicely, which is good. Sometimes when I start putting stuff together, my cutting is off and it doesn't fit. One there. One there. We're going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam for both of these, and it has us pressing out toward the fabric B. There's our hat crown unit. You can see this fits really nice top to bottom. When I go this way, I've got a little bit extra here, which means when I cut this band or when I sewed it in, it actually looks like I might have gone a little bit up right there when I sewed it in. It's a little off. So when I go to attach this to the piece underneath, I'm going to have to use this and make sure it goes nice and straight across. Let's set this aside, and we need to grab our fabric K squares and fabric Q squares. Here's our fabric K. We're going to make 5 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're going to have 1 left. Set that aside. And then you want to grab your fabric Q squares. I'm going to have 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You just have 5 of these. If you want to draw lines, it says to draw a diagonal line on the wrong side of the fabric K. We're going to put our fabric K with our fabric Q, and we're going to stitch corner to corner, and then we're going to trim a 1/4 inch away and discard that little piece. When we press this, it has us pressing toward the fabric Q, the solid. Let's go ahead and sew up 5 of these. Next, we want to grab our last fabric K and our 1 fabric L. We're going to make the right side bangs unit. Here's our fabric O. The fabric K is going to go right here. You can draw a line corner to corner if you want. We're going to sew from the upper right to the lower left. Before I cut this, I'm double checking it against the picture in the pattern. This side is going to get flipped up like that. That's what it should look like. You have your fabric O here and your fabric K here. I'm going to go ahead and trim this, take it over to the iron, and press it. It has us pressing toward the fabric K. We're going to lay out the bangs. We're going to have a fabric P. Fabric P is going to be on the left. We're going to take all of our little half square triangles, make sure that this fabric is pointing up and to the left. We're just going to go in a row like that, and then the right bangs unit is going to go over here like that. So you've got your fabric P, all your little half square triangles, and the right bangs unit. You just sew all of that together in a row. I've got that sewn together. When I flip it to the back, I can see the fabric naturally goes this way. I'm going to go ahead and press it like that. I do not see pressing instructions. If you want to press open, you can press these seams open. I'm just going to press it the way it wants to go. Here's my unit. You can see it's not perfectly straight along the bottom. It's a little jagged. It seems pretty straight across the top. It's fine. I'm not going to trim it. I'm just going to go with it. I'm totally not stressed about it. Let's take our fabric L, and it's going to go underneath. Your fabric L should be matching up with all of the same solid fabric. If you're getting ready to sew your fabric L and it looks like that, it's upside down. Turn it back around. we're going to sew this on. You can see as I put this down and I match up over here, my fabric L looks like it may be a little long. I'm going to double check that measurement. If it's correct, what I'm going to need to do is put this like this, pin and pin. I think fabric L is probably correct because you can see how easy it is for me to pull that to make it fit. It just needs to be flattened out a little bit and pin it and ease it in. My fabric L was the tiniest bit long, but not by much. I went ahead and trimmed it. If you're not lining up like I'm not here, let's go ahead and pin these. I'll show you what I do. I'm going to pin here. I'm going to add an extra pin here at the top. I want to make sure that this stays nice and straight. And then I'm going to go to the bottom and do the same thing. We want to make sure this stays nice and straight. Pin that. Sorry, bump the camera. And then we're going to pin here. And I'm putting my pins in at an angle because when I sew this, I can just pull them out as I go. You can see the difference. We're going to pull. And then we're going to ease it in. And when it's sewn, and you go and take it over to the iron, it'll press flat. Sometimes you have to give it a little spray with water, but it always works. You can press it flat, set it under a clapper for a bit, and let it set real nice. It'll be fine. Go ahead and pin on each of these seams, and then I'll sew it together. Here's this all pressed. It came out okay. Go ahead and keep your bangs unit in front of you. You've got some fabric J's. These are going to go in the upper right and left corners. I'm going to have to take another dog break. I'll put a picture of my dog on the screen. She's elderly. She has dementia. Sometimes she gets herself lost in the house and you just need to go find her and give her a treat and then she's okay. I need to go do that. These are going to lay like this. If you want, you can draw a line corner to corner from here to here. Next, we're going to need fabrics R, M, and N. The first thing we're going to do is put our fabric M in the middle, and then you've got two fabric R's. These are going to get sewn on either side of your fabric M. The picture shows pressing out toward the fabric R. Once you have that together, your fabric N is going to go right here on the bottom and you're going to press toward the fabric N. I'm going to go ahead and run all of that together on the camera. Pretty straightforward rectangles. They're calling this the cheeks unit. There is a measurement you can check in the pattern. Once you've got that together, you want to take your two fabric E's. They're going to go down here on the fabric N, like this and like this. And we're going to sew from the outside top corner down toward the center. We're going to take the cheeks unit we just made and we're going to make the face unit by putting that on the bangs unit here. So like that. Hair on top, then there's a blank spot. This is where the button eyes are going to go. And we've got our cheeks, and if you're doing the embroidery thread, the little smile's going to go there. I'm going to do all of that after I have the quilt together and long armed. I'm going to put these two together and they look like they're going to fit. Thank goodness. And we're going to sew with a 1/4 inch seam. Once you have that sewn, it shows pressing up toward your bangs unit. So like that. I'm going to go ahead and go press that. Once you've got this part together, we're going to start assembling the head unit. We're going to lay this down. You should have a fabric G. The fabric G is going to go here. Now mine's folded in half, but we've got other stuff to put on, so no panicking yet. We've got fabric A. They show this all in one picture. Fabric A, and then you should have fabric I Here's fabric I, that's the rest of the hair. So you've got your face unit. Then I would attach your fabric I. It shows pressing toward the fabric I, and then the A is going to get attached and again shows pressing toward the fabric I. Then you can sew on your fabric G, and then we can sew on the top of the hat. Let me grab that. Here's the top of the hat. Now I've got a clip on there because I looked at this very carefully, and right here it's short and it kind of comes down, and this is where it levels out. Now when I look at this, let's see, is that going to fit? It looks a little big. I'm going to double check my fabric G measurement. Do you see that? If I line this up, my stuff is always short. That's a big difference. So I need to check my fabric G, and I'm also going to check my fabric B's on the side and make sure everything is correct. My fabric G, I cut wrong. I cut this a ½ inch too short. I need to go recut a fabric G, and then I can start putting everything together. My new fabric G, let's go ahead and make sure that fits. That's better. That's going to fit. So this can get sewn to this, and all of these can get put together. I'll go ahead and film all of that together. That's all sewn together. You might have seen me go back and forth at the ends. I just wanted to make sure it was extra secure, so I went ahead and back tacked that. I need to press that toward the hat band, and then we're going to attach our side pieces with our checkerboard blocks. I've got all of that pressed. I'm running out of space here. This is a big block. You're going to take the checkerboard unit that's got the blue. This is going to go up in the corner over on the left, and then the one that has the green goes this way. So you've got your blue, upper left, green, lower right. You have to go right sides together, 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to go ahead and pin that off camera. When it gets this big, it's really hard to get it on camera to pin, but I'm going to pin these, sew them, and then they show pressing out toward these pieces. Here's the final unit. Sorry for the shadow. I've got a skylight above me. This is big. I'm not sure how I'm going to get a picture of this for the final shot, but there you go. If you're putting your buttons on now, you can put the buttons on, and there's a drawing in the pattern for the smile. I'm going to do all of that after it's together and long-armed. I'm going to take a break. If you're doing both of these blocks in one day, I highly recommend taking a break, and then we'll start on the next one. We're going to start next on the dress block. I did go ahead and cut the vintage trim. This needs to go in now as the block is going together. The block also does have buttons going down the center of the shirt. Those I'm going to leave off. I'll put those on after everything gets put together and quilted. We're going to start with fabrics A, D, and P, and we're only going to make one this orientation. So we'll just take one of our fabric A's, and we'll set the other one back for now. One of our fabric D's and one of our fabric P's. We have our fabric A and our fabric D. Fabric D is a rectangle. Short side is here, long side is here. Fabric A is going to cover it on the left hand side like this. If you want, you can draw a line corner to corner right here. That's where we'll be sewing. You can see a bit of fabric D right there. Let's go ahead and sew that line. This is a big piece of fabric. I want to make sure nothing moves when I'm sewing corner to corner. I'm just going to add a couple of pins. They're out of the way of the center line. I'm going to go ahead and put that there. And this actually runs off the bed of my machine. I've been using the diagonal seam tape. I'm just going to have to do the best I can. I don't feel like drawing a line today. Let's go ahead and sew it and see how I do. Here we go. I'm going to take out the pins and flip and have a look before I trim. Make sure I did okay. I did fine. Now, this is a lot of fabric to discard. There's a couple things you can do. You can just keep it in your scrap pile, or if you want, kind of line up here. I'm going to sew another line right there. Now I'm going to cut down the middle, and I'm going to have an extra half square triangle. That's a nice big half square triangle. I have a pile of them. If you've been watching Fat Quarter Shop for a while, you might remember Kimberly had a half square triangle bucket. I've got a little tin full of half square triangles I've yet to do anything to do with. This will make a nice addition. I'm going to go ahead, cut down the middle, and then that'll get pressed. And actually, what I'm going to do right now is just pin it up and out of the way, because the next thing we're going to do is take our fabric key and we're going to lay it right here in the corner. We're going to sew corner to corner. So I'm going to do that, and then I can trim both and press both at the same time. Here's the piece we need for the quilt. The extra half square triangle trimmed up to 5.5 inches square. That's a nice size half square triangle. That's going to go in my tin with the rest of them. Next, you want to grab your 2 fabric H's and one of your fabric C's. We're going to make a flying geese. We've done this before. I'm going to take my fabric C, put down the fabric H. You can draw lines on the back if you want. So corner to corner, we'll flip it, check it, make sure we did a good job, then trim and press. And then we'll do this side, corner to corner, flip it, check it, trim it, and press. Let's go ahead and make our flying geese unit. Here's our flying geese unit. All the units have measurements in the pattern. I can't give the measurements, just a quick reminder. That's why I don't measure and stop after each step, but you can certainly do that. We're going to work on assembling the left arm unit. You're going to need the 2 pieces we just made and your fabric F. We're going to take the top of the arm, goes right here. Fabric F is going to go here, and your flying geese is going to go like that, pointing toward fabric F. So you want to sew this together first. It says to press it toward fabric F, and then to sew these together. Does not give a pressing instruction for the seam right here. I'm going to go ahead and sew those seams. I've got the left arm unit together sitting on my ironing board under the clapper. We're going to start on the right arm unit. You're going to need your other A and D, and then one more of your fabric P's. You still have 2 fabric P's left. Let's go ahead and take these off. The A for this side goes over here, like that. So you have your extra fabric D on the left, corner to corner, just like before, and I'm going to do that double stitch line, get another half square triangle, and then this one is going to go down here on this side. We're essentially making a mirror image of the other side we just made. Got the arm unit here and another 5.5 inch half square triangle. I'm going to set this off to the side. For the next step, you need a fabric E and a fabric B. I'm going to put your fabric B over your fabric E. If you want, you can draw a line. We're going to sew upper left to lower right, flip and check it, and then press. I might sew a double seam on this one too. That's going to give me another good size leftover triangle. Here's the arm unit, and this time I got a nice 3.5 inch square, half square triangle. You want to grab your right upper arm unit right here. Again, measurements in the pattern. You can double check your measurements. And then the right lower arm unit like that. And we're going to match them up like this and sew the seams. So you've got the white in the upper right, your gray, the little brown corner here, and the gray. The little brown corner is part of her hair. So if you think it's looking weird, it does kind of look weird, but the rest of the hair is going to go here. This is the bottom of the pigtail. We're going to start working on her braids. I've got 2 M's and 2 P's. In the instructions, it has us making one side and the other side. I'm going to do both at once. That's going to be easier for me, but you can certainly do one side and then the other side. I did go ahead and draw a line corner to corner on the back of my fabric P's. For the first ponytail, we've got our M and we've got our P. It's going to be just like this. This corner to this corner. I'm going to go ahead and add a pin so it doesn't move when I take it over to the sewing machine. And then the other side, it's going to go the other direction, like that. This is why it's easier for me to do both at once. Visually, you can see that you've got everything going the right direction. But again, if you want to do one at a time, certainly do one at a time. I'm going to go ahead and pin and pin. We'll sew on our line, and then we'll flip, check, trim, and press. We have 2 MP units. Let's start with this one. This one is pointing down and to the left. I'm looking at the picture on page 31. So you've got your M and your P. You need a fabric N. It's going to go here. Now for this side, where it points down and to the right, we're making a mirror image. So the N is going to go here. Our next fabric, fabric Q, that's going to go in the middle. That's the little pigtail holder here and here. And then we have fabric O next. Here's our fabric O, here and here. And then we're going to have fabrics I and L. Here's our I and L. I is the little rectangle. On this side, it's going to go here. And this is going to go right here. And then on this side, I goes out here. I needs to be ironed. And that goes there. Here's how everything lays out for these units. You can look at the pressing instructions as well. There's arrows going all over the place. Honestly, I'm going to sew it together and press it whichever direction it wants to go. What I'm going to do is sew my fabric N to Q, N to Q, Q to O, Q to O, then my I and L's together, then go press everything, then we'll come back and lay it out for assembly. We've got all our components sewn and pressed. Let's go ahead and lay these out again. This is going to go over here. This is going to go like that. On this side, your I on the right, and on this side, the I is on the left. Keep your picture in front of you, refer to it as you sew, and keep it straight. Take your time. I've got these sewn and pressed. Here's how I pressed over toward the hair and then down toward the bottom piece. We're going to set these aside and we're going to start working on part of the shirt. You're going to need your vintage trim, rickrack, and your fabric G's. This does have a right or a wrong side. You can tell by looking at it closely, and when you take it off the spool, if you're using the vintage trim, this side just doesn't look quite as nice as this side. That's the right side. Let's grab our fabric G's, put them next to each other. It says to baste it onto fabric G using a 1/8 inch seam allowance. They're lining it up on the edge like this. So the peak of your vintage trim is going along the edge of your fabric G like that. Let's go ahead and take these over to the machine. Your trim is longer than your fabric G, so I'm not worried about pinning it down. What we're doing is we're catching the tip of the vintage trim because there's going to be another piece that's going to go down here with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. That's not why we're using a 1/4 inch seam allowance and why we're doing 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to go ahead and increase my stitch length. We'll go about 3, and we'll just kind of go right along the edge there. And all we really are doing is tacking it down and holding it into place. I've got both of those basted on. I got close to a 1/4 of an inch at some parts. If I end up seeing this basting stitch as we put it together, I can always pull it out. Before you forget, put your stitch length back to normal. Let's go ahead and work on what they're calling the dress placard. Grab your fabric J. That's going to go in the middle. And we're going to attach these with a 1/4 inch and press. It shows pressing toward the fabric J. Before I attach it, I am going to go ahead and trim off this extra. It'll make it harder for me to line up with the extra on there. I'm Once you've got both sides sewn on, you can look at the stitching. Here's the regular stitching, and the basting stitching is further toward the raw edge, so it's fine. I don't have to worry about picking out any of the basting stitches. I need to go ahead and press this. It says to press toward J. When you press toward J, what's going to happen is the vintage trim is going to flip out like that. We're going to start laying everything out. You should have a fabric K left. I'm going to start with the center. Arm that has the bend is going to go on this side. I'm going to leave space for the hair. And the arm that does not have a bend is going to go on this side over here. Then you've got pigtails. It'll be easy to tell if you've got them the right direction or the wrong direction because of the corner of the pigtail. This one goes like this. This one goes here like that. So you end up with the pigtails pointing out, and the fabric K is going to go right there. And that's going to be our Farm Girl dress block. Let's look at how we need to put this together. Let me pull a few things apart so we can see all of the seams. We need to start in the center, right here. You have to put the hair pieces on first, like that. Then your fabric K is going to go on, and then you can sew the 2 arm seams. So start with the pigtails. I'm actually going to grab a clip and clip this. We'll clip that right there. I'm not worried about lining it up. All I'm doing is clipping them so I don't accidentally turn them around. After you sew these, it says to press the seams open. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to pick a side. And then I'll sew this on. You'll press down toward fabric K. Sew on the 2 arms. It says to press those open. Again, I don't like to press open. I'll pick a side. I'm going to go ahead and do all of that together. Let's take a quick look over here at the machine before I press. See how everything came out. Make sure I didn't sew anything on upside down. I did not. Thank goodness. I'm going to go ahead and press this. I may have to lay these out on the floor to get them on the camera. We'll see. We'll get a final look. I will measure them. There are measurements for the completed block in your pattern. Go ahead and double check your measurements. I was so excited I went and measured both of these. Unbelievably, they are both exactly the right size. I'm gonna go press this, have a piece of chocolate to celebrate, and then come back and film the rest. These are too big to fit on the table. They came out great. If you're adding the button eyes, the buttons down the middle, and the little smile, you can add that. Again, I'm leaving all that off until the end because the long arm can catch on things. I'm a little worried about that vintage trim right there. I'll have to be really careful, keep an eye on my machine when I'm doing the quilting. Very pleased with the way both these blocks turned out. They're so big. We've been working on kind of smaller components. Having these 2 pieces done and laid out is sort of giving me an idea of how ginormous this quilt is going to be. Let's look at what we're going to do next month. We just finished our July blocks, the Farm Girl head block and the Farm Girl dress block. For August, we're going to work on the Farm Girl arm and the cherry pocket block. We're actually halfway done with this quilt. Give yourself a pat on the back. If you're just starting, the playlist is linked below. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends. There's a link below to my private Facebook group. I post in there a lot of what's going on, if there are any schedule changes, if I'm running behind with anything, any problems. You have to answer one security question that helps keep out the bots and the spammers. Thanks for quilting along with me, and I will see you back in August for the next 2 blocks. Bye, everybody! Here's your bonus for staying toward the end. Here's my half square triangle container. Let's look inside. I haven't opened it in a while. I've been saving this for quite some time. This is a Lori Holt cookbook tin. So whenever the cookbook fabric line came out, it's probably when I started doing this. Got some Bonnie and Camille fabric, random fabrics. These are from Socialites. All different kinds of fabric. That's spring chicken, some solids, some colors. There's a potential really, really big quilts in here. There we go. Problem solved for now. Let me know if you keep a half square triangle tin, bucket, basket, what you do with it. See you next time, everybody. Bye.